You are drifting now, far from the noise of modern waters, far from ports, engines, ships, and sail. Beneath you, not the Pacific or Atlantic, not the Mediterranean, not any ocean that still has a name, but something older, a sea that no longer exists. The sun is high, the surface ripples softly with light, but deep below, a shadow stirs. It is not a fish, it is not a whale, it is something else entirely. A reptile, but it breathes air. A hunter, but with flippers instead of limbs. Its body undulates with a serpent's grace. Its jaws hold teeth that never forget the shape of the prey. This was once its world, and now it has been forgotten. We speak so often of the dinosaurs of the land, the horned ones, the armored ones, the ones who ran with thunder in their feet. But what of the ocean? What of the dark blue empire? What of the sea dinosaurs? They were not truly dinosaurs, we now say, but marine reptiles, distant cousins, evolving parallel to their land-bound kin. Yet to the ocean, that taxonomy is meaningless. To the prey, there is no comfort in a name. To the world they shaped beneath the tide, they were kings. Mosasaurus, Pliosaurus, Ichthyosaurus, Elasmosaurus. Names carved from stone. But once they were alive, here's the question that opens the door. What ruled the sea while dinosaurs ruled the land? And more importantly, why did we forget them? Let us return. Let us follow the ripple backward. Let us stand again at the edge of the sea, not a sea we know, but one that breathed before we did. Let us descend. The sea before memory. We often picture the past in silence, but the Mesozoic oceans were never still. Between 250 and 66 million years ago, Earth's seas swelled with creatures unlike anything alive today. This was the age of reptiles, not only on land, but in every corner of the water. Here, evolution tried out strange shapes. Here, survival meant speed teeth and breath held long beneath the surface. Here, giants were born and lost. Not one ocean, but many. The Tethys, the Sundance, the Western Interior Seaway. Each one a stage for sea monsters as real as any dinosaur that walked. Close your eyes and imagine it. A vast inland sea cuts North America in two. A warm, shallow body of water, teeming with life sunlight, filtering down through a haze of drifting plankton. Above, winged pterosaurs skim the surface. Below, the shadows are hungry. Something larger than a bus glides just beneath the waves. A Mosasaurus, eyes forward, jaws ready. This is not a fish. This is something the sea itself shaped out of bone and ambition. A flick of its tail. Silence again. And then, nothing remains but blood in the current. This world is gone, but not lost. Fossils whisper what water cannot hold. And in limestone beds and cliffs, above modern beaches and canyons and desert stone, the bones wait. Sometimes whole, often broken, but always speaking. A kingdom without echo. Why do we remember Tyrannosaurus but not Pliosaurus? Why are children taught the land? Kings, the Stegosaurus, the Velociraptor, the Triceratops, but not the hunters that rule the deep. Perhaps it is the land that leaves clearer traces. Perhaps it is the face, the towering presence that burns into story. Or perhaps it is simply because we were never meant to live in water, and so we forgot the ones who did. But the sea does not forget, and neither does stone. We begin our journey not in the present, but in the strata. In the layered language of time pressed into rock, the bones of these creatures tell us their secrets slowly. A vertebra here, a tooth there. Each one a sentence from a book torn apart by the weight of the earth. And still, the story survives. In 1778, the very first known ichthyosaur fossil was found along the cliffs of Lyme Regis in England. They did not know what it was. They called it a fish lizard. They were not far off. In the centuries that followed, more bones emerged, massive skulls with banana-sized teeth. Elegant flippers, shaped for speed necks, longer than a giraffe's jaws, wider than a crocodile's. we began to realize something vast had happened. That the land was only part of the story. That the sea had its own monsters, the riddle of breath. All these creatures, the Mosasaurus, the Pliosaurus, the Plesiosaurus, the Ichthyosaurus, shared something curious. They lived entirely in the water, and yet they breathed air. They could not survive without the surface. They could not lay eggs beneath the tide. They bore live young, sometimes tail first, and in some fossil beds, we have found them still curled in the moment of birth. Imagine that a mother Stenopterygius, frozen forever, with her pup half emerged, a birth sealed into stone by mud and time. They were not fish. They were air's creatures mastering water, and that makes their story even stranger. To evolve for the sea, to give up legs for fins, to trade the warmth of the shore for the cold, vast deep, was to become something entirely new. The land held dinosaurs. The skies held pterosaurs. But the ocean belonged to the reptiles who dared to leave gravity behind. And yet, for all our study, for all the bones unearthed from shale, from chalk, from cliffs, we still do not fully understand how they hunted, how they birthed, how they saw in the dark. We only know they were there, and that they were magnificent. The sea holds more fossils than we can count. But many still sleep beneath layers too deep to touch. In Antarctica, in seabeds not yet raised, in places where the weight of water has kept them hidden for 100 million years. What dreams lie beneath? What beasts sleep in the limestone below our feet? This is not a story about death. It is a story about memory, about the shapes time cannot hold, but stone can. This is the story of the sea dinosaurs, forgotten kings, rulers of the Blue Empire, ghosts of a tide that once ran through every corner of the earth. They hunted, they birthed, they vanished, and yet they remain. You stand now in the shadow of a cliff. Not a mountain, not a volcano, but a wall of time, layer upon layer of ancient seafloor, lifted slowly skyward by the patient hand of tectonic drift. This was once the bottom of an ocean. Now it watches over fields. The sun warms the chalky white rock. Limestone, soft and crumbling, cradles the ghosts of the deep. And there, not far above your head, the curve of a jaw, teeth still embedded, frozen in scream or silence we cannot tell. But it was a predator, that much is clear. This is how we know them. Not from memory, but from geology. Each fossil is a sentence. Each excavation a whisper pulled from the throat of the earth. These creatures left no legends, no songs, no paintings, no myth. They left only what the ocean could not erase: teeth, vertebrae, the occasional flipper, the rare and precious skull. No soft skin, no eyes, no color. We do not know what their cries sounded like. We can only guess. But what we do have is the shape of movement, the shape of death, the shape of mastery. A body made for water. Let us begin with the Ichthyosaurs, the first true lords of the Mesozoic Sea. They appeared not long after the greatest extinction Earth has ever known, the Permian-Triassic event, 252 million years ago. When life nearly ended, out of that silence something new emerged, something sleek, something fast, something that looked to our eyes remarkably like a dolphin. But it was no mammal. It was a reptile, a lizard-like ancestor that returned to the water and never looked back. Its limbs became flippers. Its spine stretched into a tail. Its body compressed into a torpedo of grace. It evolved massive eyes, the largest of any known vertebrate, perhaps, to hunt in darkness. Fossils show the outline of its body, the shadows of its skin, even the remains of its last meal, squid, fish, other reptiles. It hunted by speed, by ambush, by vision. This was not a clumsy experiment. It was a design perfected by time. And for millions of years, the Ichthyosaurs reigned. Fast, deadly, wide-ranging. They ruled seas across what we now call Europe, Asia, North America. But back then, there were no continents. Only the great superocean Panthalassa and the gathering of land called Pangaea. To live then was to live on the edge of warmth and salt. To To adapt was to survive. To swim was to win. But time is not kind to rulers. New shapes were always rising from the shallows. The Pliosaurs followed, broader, heavier, with skulls the size of small cars and bite forces to match. Imagine a crocodile, but 3 times longer, with flippers that churned the water like oars of death. Pliosaurus funki, one of the largest, could reach over 40 feet. Its teeth were conical bone-crushing. Its jaws opened wide enough to engulf a small boat. It didn't chase, it ambushed. From below, from behind, from silence. Others took a different path. The elasmosaurids, with necks so long they bordered on the absurd. Some had over 70 vertebrae in a single neck. But why? Was it for stealth, to keep their bodies hidden while their heads scanned the reef? Was it a lure mimicking seaweed or coral? Was it simply chance stretched by time? We don't know, but they swam. They thrived. And they gave birth to creatures equally strange. And then in the final chapters of the Cretaceous came the most terrifying of all, the Mosasaurs. They were not born in the sea. Their ancestors walked the land. Lizards distantly related to modern monitor lizards, even snakes. But evolution pulled them back. And the ocean, as always, rewarded boldness. Mosasaurus hoffmanni, the great leviathan of the late Cretaceous, was over 50 feet long with paddle-like limbs and a crushing tail. Its skull resembled that of a dragon. Its teeth curved backward, perfect for gripping slippery prey. It didn't just eat fish, it ate everything. Sharks, other reptiles, perhaps even smaller mosasaurs. It hunted in packs. It dominated the western interior seaway, a vast inland ocean that split North America in 2. Picture it a sea that reached from what is now Texas to Canada. Shallow, warm, full of life. In these waters, Mosasaurus reigned without rival. Its bones now rest in Kansas and Nebraska, in the middle of what we call landlocked. But this was once ocean. And those who ruled it were true monsters of scale and hunger. We know of them through bone, through sediment, through lucky chance. But even in the fossil, we sense something greater. A power, a poise, a terror. These were not accidents of evolution. They were its masterpieces, the sea's quiet experiment. The ocean is a strange place for air breathers, and yet, over and over again, evolution returns them there. Whales, seals, sea turtles, even penguins. But before any of these mammals or birds dared re-enter the deep, the reptiles had already done it, and done it spectacularly. And then, they vanished. All of them, not in one way, not in one day, but over time. Until at the end of the Cretaceous, with the asteroids' fire and the skies gone dark, the last of the mosasaurs slipped from the record. We have no bones more recent than 66 million years ago. Their empire ended as so many do not, with battle, but with silence. And yet they shaped the sea. They hunted through ecosystems that would echo for eons. They cleared niches. They filled gaps. They set the evolutionary stage for what came next. And though their bloodline did not survive, their example remains. To return to the sea is possible. To thrive in it, astonishing. To dominate it, unforgettable. Even if we did forget, for a while. But now we remember. With each fossil found, with each cliff walked, with each stone turned by patient hands, we are learning again the language of the sea dinosaurs. It is a language of bone, of pressure, of time, and it speaks not only of extinction, but of brilliance, of creatures that for millions of years ruled the greatest kingdom of all. There is a place where stone remembers, a desert in Nevada, a cliffside in Dorset, a chalk pit in Germany. Beneath them, all the quiet bones of giants' bones laid down in ancient seabeds pressed into rock by pressure and time. And when the sunlight hits these fossils just right, you almost see them rise. Not as bones, but as bodies. Flesh, scale, teeth, muscle, flipper, breath. You almost remember what the ocean once feared. But bones tell us only where, not why. not how. So we must listen harder, not just to the fossil, but to the earth itself, to the layers, to the chemical ghosts, to the microscopic clues buried in sediment and silence. Because this story, the story of how reptiles rule the sea, is not a single tale. It is many experiments, many failures, and many strange victories. From shore to depth, to become a sea dinosaur, a master of the deep one, had to be brave. Evolution is not always graceful. The early marine reptiles were clumsy. Limbs not yet fins, tails not yet rudders. Lungs still bound to the rhythm of surface air, but they tried. And the sea patient has ever shaped them. Ichthyosaurs were among the first to surrender their legs. They gave in, fully sacrificing land for speed bone for buoyancy. Their tails became vertical flukes, like fish like whales. Their bodies tapered to perfection. They did not swim, they flew through water. The fossil record shows it with poetic clarity, progressive streamlining from awkward lizard to hydrodynamic marvel. It is as though water itself redesigned them. The Plesiosaurus and Pliosaurus chose a different route. Their bodies stayed broader, heavier, armored in scale and muscle. But their flippers grew strong. Not for speed, but for precision. They used all four like oars rowing through the shallows, twisting, turning, hovering. A plesiosaur did not chase. It maneuvered, stalked, struck sideways. Its long neck, unarmored, vulnerable, may seem foolish. But perhaps it wasn't the neck that was the hunter. Perhaps it was the head darting forward like a snake from a hidden distance, while the body lay still in the coral shadows. Evolution does not care for aesthetics, only for results. And then the Mosasaurus, the final sea kings. They were a convergence. Land reptiles turned swimmers. Fins evolved from clawed feet. Tails reshaped into powerful shark-like blades. They retained a lizard skull. Wide jaws hinged to open impossibly large, with a second row of teeth inside their throats. A cruel, perfect mechanism, once prey entered it, could not come back out. They hunted anything. They shared no kinship, only hunger. How did they see the sea? We look at their skulls and wonder, did they see in color? Did they sense vibration like sharks? Did they hunt by sight, sound, scent? In Ichthyosaurus, we find the largest eyes ever recorded in a vertebrate up to 25 centimeters across. Some were likely deep sea hunters. The large eyes, the sclerotic rings of bone inside, suggest vision tuned for darkness, for pressure, for the glint of prey in blackness. Imagine an animal the size of a killer whale, hunting squid 1,000 feet below the surface. Its eyes scanning pitch, its lungs full of air. It must ration. And all this 200 million years before the first whale. Pliosaurs were built for ambush. Their snouts are wide, their teeth interlock. Their nasal cavities suggest a keen sense of smell. Perhaps they tracked blood in the current like crocodiles do today. Some paleontologists think they may have breached like whales, leaping, crashing, turning the sea into a stage of violence. Others believe they hunted slow like gators, waiting beneath the surface, then exploding upward in a singular strike. We'll never know for sure. But the shape of the skull tells us one thing clearly: these were predators. Not passive feeders, not scavengers, but rulers. Mosasaurus, with its absurdly long neck, raises other mysteries. We have never found a complete set of internal organs. No eyes, no preserved brain case. We know it had over 70 neck vertebrae, more than any other known animal. But we don't know how it held that neck in the water. Could it bend like a swan? Did it float? Did it dart? Or was it mostly static? A probe extended through coral gardens. Its anatomy suggests compromise. Beauty and awkwardness intertwined, like a dragon written by water. And then the Mosasaurs. The Mosasaurs. Their eyes were smaller, their bodies more torpedoed. They relied on movement, speed, violence. Some fossilized stomachs show remnants of turtle shells shattered inward. Others contain fish bones, ammonites, even partial remains of other mosasaurs. This was not an animal with dietary restrictions. Its flippers were shaped by brute utility, its tail by propulsion, its skull by conquest. The sea gave it the shape of a nightmare, and it used it well. The breathers of the deep. All these creatures had one thing in common. They could not breathe underwater. They had to surface. Had to trust that the ocean would not betray them with rough wave storms, predators above. And yet, they stayed. They birthed their young at sea. Some gave live birth. Others may have crawled briefly to land, though no evidence confirms it. Fossils of pregnant ichthyosaurs show babies curled within some even mid-birth, frozen in limestone. One was discovered in Germany, a 180-million-year-old moment of motherhood caught between contraction and eternity. They were reptiles, but in some ways they were more. They were artists of endurance. They were dreamers of breath. The world they inherited, the world they shaped. The oceans of the Mesozoic were not like ours. Warmer, shallower, filled with reefs of sponges and corals and creatures no longer known. The western interior seaway. A vast body of water that bisected North America was more like a tropical lagoon that never ended. Here swam Pliosaurus, a mosasaur with a skull over 5 feet long. Here flew pteranodon diving from the air. Here pulsed clouds of ammonites, shelled cephalopods whose spirals rivaled the beauty of any galaxy. Below them, terror. But even these terrors, these rulers of the deep, were not safe from time. Something was coming. Not yet. Not in this moment. But the shadows had begun to stretch. The world was changing. And the kings of the ocean could not outswim extinction. Before the fall, for now though they were perfect, the seas shimmered. The continents drifted. The sun rose and fell. And the Mosasaurs hunted. And the Ichthyosaurs birthed. And the Plesiosaurs watched with eyes like polished stones. No humans, no whales, no memory, only salt bone breath, only the quiet echoing rain of the sea dinosaurs. The earth forgets nothing. It only buries. What we call extinction, it calls sleep. What we call loss, it remembers as layering one world pressed gently over another. And somewhere beneath your feet, beneath the cities, beneath the gardens, beneath the dust, lie the last whispers of a vanished empire. A tooth, a vertebra, a mother and child forever locked in the birth they never finished. The sea dinosaurs are gone, but their bones still dream of water. They did not disappear all at once. Their empires unraveled slowly, not like a tower struck by lightning, but like a sail left in windless seas. Ichthyosaurs, once so dominant, began to vanish tens of millions of years before the Great Extinction. Their diversity shrank. Their fossils thinned across the record. Perhaps they could not compete with rising predators. Perhaps their prey disappeared. Perhaps the oceans shifted around them, and they could not shift fast enough in return. We do not know. Their story ends quietly. No comet, no fire, just a soft fade into silence. But others lasted longer. Plesiosaurus, Pliosaurus, and Mosasaurus thrived deep into the late Cretaceous. They hunted, bred, fought oblivious to the approaching dusk, and then suddenly darkness. The fire from the sky. 6 million years ago, a mountain of stone fell from space. It struck near what is now the Yucatan Peninsula. The impact vaporized the sea. It set the sky alight. It threw rock and ash across the globe. In hours, the planet changed. The food chains collapsed, first at the surface, then in the deep. Sunlight dimmed, temperatures plummeted, photosynthesis ceased. Marine life from plankton to ammonites died in vast numbers, and with them the giants. The mosasaurs, once masters of every sea, disappeared. We find no trace of them above the thin, dark layer in the rock, a line rich in iridium. Born of the asteroid, a grave marker spread across every continent. Above that line, mammals, fish, whales eventually. Below that line, kings. The oceans mourned in silence. And slowly, as they always do, they turned the bones into stone. The ones who dug up memory. But let us turn now to the land, to the cliffs, to the dig sites, to the dusty fingers of those who dared to ask what lived before. Because the sea dinosaurs were not truly lost, only waiting for someone to ask the right question, to crack the right rock, to hold up a strange tooth and say, this does not belong here. In the early 1800s, a young English woman named Mary Anning walked the beaches of Lyme Regis. She was poor. She was female. She was ignored by the scientific elite of her time, but she had eyes that saw beyond the ordinary. She collected fossils not as curiosities, but as questions. One day, she unearthed the skeleton of something long, sleek, and toothed. It was the first correctly identified ichthyosaur, a creature no one had ever imagined, a monster of the deep. In a place now filled with cliffs and gulls, she was 16 years old. Later, she would discover a plesiosaur, its neck long and impossible, its body like a boat, its head like a serpent. Many believed it was a fake. Even the great Georges Cuvier doubted it, until further finds proved her right. She had uncovered the truth that the ocean long before humans had housed dragons, and she had pulled those dragons back from the dark. Mary Anning died in obscurity, but her work rippled through paleontology for generations. Her fossils are now displayed in museums. Her name, once forgotten, is carved beside the skeleton she saved. And through her hands, the sea dinosaurs began to live again. The age of obsession. In the centuries that followed, a strange fever gripped science. The bone wars. The great fossil rush. Paleontologists racing across deserts and cliffs and shale beds, digging, blasting, cataloging. Most were drawn to the land giants, the Tyrannosaurus, Stegosaurus, Diplodocus. But the oceans held their own secrets. In Kansas, a place now 1,000 miles from the nearest sea, they unearthed Pliosaurus, its jaws wide, its bones thick with violence. They found ammonites the size of tires, sea turtles larger than bathtubs, shark teeth like daggers, and alongside them, bones of things they could not name. Vertebrae too smooth, jaws too wide, skulls shaped for water. At first they were puzzled. But layer by layer, they realized this had been a sea, and these had been its rulers. What they taught us, the fossils spoke of speed, of predation, of birth in open water, of extinction so absolute only silence remained. They showed us what the ocean can do to the body, how it bends, the spine stretches, the lung reshapes the limb into a fin, the foot into a paddle. They taught us that land is not the only arena for greatness, that terrain beneath the waves requires its own genius, its own madness, its own perfection. And they warned us, because buried in those fossils and the chemistry of the shells, the growth rings of the teeth are hints of how the oceans changed, of warming currents, of acidifying water, of mass die-offs before the asteroid came. We do not know if these were connected, but the patterns echo into our own time. The sea remembers, and sometimes it repeats. The sea dinosaurs were not myths. They were not metaphors. They were animals, alive, breathing, struggling, succeeding, and then gone. But the memory of them, the truth of them, was rescued by those who dared to dig. Not just scientists, but poets of stone, translators of the unspeakable, readers of the earth's long unbroken sentence. They gave the giants back their names, and in doing so gave us back our wonder. And still the bones whisper, we are still learning. New species are found every year. In Morocco, in New Zealand, in Argentina. Mosasaurus with strange crests. Plesiosaurs with armor-like scales. Ichthyosaurs with pups fossilized inside them. We are nowhere near done. Some of the best preserved specimens come not from land, but from oil fields, quarry walls, sea caves. One day a child may kick over a rock and find a tooth, a blade sharpened 90 million years ago. And in that moment, a new chapter will begin. This is the human part of the story, the part that connects us to them. We do not share blood. We do not share breath. But we share curiosity. We share the same planet. And we too will vanish someday. Perhaps someone will dig us up, perhaps not. But while we are here, let us remember the ones who ruled the oceans before us, the forgotten kings, the sea dinosaurs. Why does the sea grow them so large? Why do the deep places of the world summon creatures with jaws that break bone, eyes that drink darkness, and lungs that dare to breathe where breath should not belong. It has always been this way. Long before the sea dinosaurs, there were armored fish the length of buses. After them came whales the size of trains and sharks whose teeth filled cliffs. The ocean, it builds giants, not out of pride, not out of drama, but because it can. The ocean is vast, vaster than we comprehend. It holds space, depth, room to grow. In its silence, evolution whispers new designs, not in years, but in epochs. And in its darkness, it allows those designs to flourish unseen, unjudged, unhurried. The land demands compromise. It offers friction drought, gravity predators from above, predators from below. Every step is taxed, but the sea carries you, cushions your bones, softens the rules. It asks for only two things. Don't stop moving. Don't forget to breathe. So the body stretches, the flippers widen, the jaws elongate, the eyes darken. What was once a lizard becomes a legend. The sea dinosaurs did not become giants because they wanted to. They became giants because the sea was deep enough to hold them. We think of the sea as gentle. We sit beside it. We walk its shores. We let it soothe us to sleep. But the ancient sea was not gentle. And perhaps even today, it only pretends to be. Beneath the shimmer is a great forgetting. A depth where time coils like kelp and memory becomes a current that pulls you backward. The sea does not remember like we do. It does not archive. It does not weep. It just buries. And yet in that burial, there is preservation. A vertebra becomes stone. A tooth becomes a clock. A skeleton becomes a sentence from a vanished book. We can read them, but we will never hear their voices, never see their eyes, never know how they hunted or played or dreamed. We can guess, we can recreate, but we will never remember, because to remember something, you must have been there. Still there is awe, the kind that hums behind your ribs when you look out across the open sea and feel something looking back. A shadow perhaps, a memory, or just the shape of wonder long forgotten. The shape of a vanished world. We think of extinction as an ending, but really it is a transformation. What was once alive becomes lesson. What was once warm becomes stone, and what was once feared becomes beautiful. We now hang the skeletons of sea monsters in museums. We let our children stand beneath their jaws. We call them magnificent, but once they were just alive, doing what all creatures do, breathing, birthing, hunting, eating. They were not monsters. They were simply successful. For a time, is that all any species is? A temporary arrangement with nature, one that ends not with failure, but with the arrival of something new. We like to imagine ourselves as separate, as beyond extinction, but we are not. We too are borrowing time. The sea does not need us. It never has. It swallowed the trilobites. It erased the ammonites. It sang the Mosasaurus into stone. It will carry on long after we are gone. And perhaps someday something will swim through our drowned cities and wonder what we were. Does the sea remember a silly question, but worth asking? Do whales sing over places where Mosasaurus once ruled? Do modern fish trace the migratory paths of long-dead predators? Does the shape of the reef still echo with plesiosaur breath? Probably not. But in the motion of water in its rhythms, there is a kind of memory, a continuity. Life left the sea once and then came back. Again and again, creatures abandon the land to rejoin the deep. Why? Because it calls. Because there is room. Because gravity is kinder there. Because hunger moves differently below the surface. And maybe because the sea is the oldest part of us. Our blood is salt water. Our bones are hollowed for breath. Our ancestors once had gills. Perhaps we return because we are remembered. And what do we remember? That we are not the first. That we are not the strongest. That even the mightiest jaws can be silenced. That even the rulers of the ocean can be reduced to chalk. Awe is not knowledge. We know many things about sea dinosaurs. We know what they ate, how they swam, where they lived. But awe is not made of facts. It is made of feeling. And the feeling these creatures leave in us is not of dominance, but of grace. A plesiosaur neck arching like a ribbon in dusklight. A mosasaur slipping upward through the gloom like a thought rising from dream. An ichthyosaur birthing her child in the slow ballet of survival. These are not monsters, they are poems. And we are lucky, so lucky to have found their bones, to have touched in stone what once moved through blue. There is no photograph of a living sea dinosaur. There never will be. But it is the way that makes the story more powerful, because it means we must imagine. We must assemble the ghosts ourselves. We must listen to the silence and hear breathing. The ocean does not explain. It does not apologize. It does not teach. It just is. And that is why the sea dinosaurs feel so mysterious, because they were shaped by a world not made for us. A world we can only visit, only dip into, only guess at. And still, they reach us. Across time, across sediment, across extinction, they reach us. It did not happen all at once. No trumpet sounded. No sky cracked open. No sudden curtain fell upon the sea. The end came slowly, like the tide turning in the night, so subtle that none of the kings noticed they were losing their throne. One morning, a reef is quieter than usual. 1 month, the fish seem fewer. One season, the water runs warmer, or colder, or stranger. And somewhere beneath the waves, a pregnant ichthyosaur searches for food and finds only emptiness. This is how an empire ends. Not with drama, but with drift. We imagine extinction as a single cataclysmic moment, a flash, a fall, a fire from the heavens. And yes, sometimes it is. A mountain from the sky can do in hours what climate needs centuries to finish. But often, extinction begins earlier. In the subtle places, the quiet collapses. A single missing species of plankton, a shift in the salinity, a change in the migration of prey, small breaks in the rhythm, and then suddenly a silence that echoes louder than any storm. The kingdom begins to unravel. The ichthyosaurs, first of the great marine reptiles, were already in decline long before the asteroid came. They had ruled for over 150 million years, a dynasty longer than anything humanity has imagined. But the sea was changing. Competition grew fiercer. Prey patterns shifted. New predators emerged, including the great mosasaurs. The oceans they had mastered were no longer the oceans they had evolved in, and so they faded. The last ichthyosaur fossil we know dates from roughly 90 million years ago, 16 million years before the extinction event. They were gone before the curtain fell, as if they'd seen the writing in the currents and bowed out early. The Plesiosaurs and Mosasaurs, however, they stayed until the end, thriving, hunting. Perhaps in their final days, they were more numerous than ever. The fossil record hints at flourishing, at wide ranges, at diverse forms. But flourishing is not the same as surviving, because when the end came, it was fast. A 6-mile wide asteroid, moving faster than sound, faster than comprehension. It struck the shallow seas near what is now Mexico, the Yucatan Peninsula, a place once warm and blue and full of life. In seconds, the ocean vaporized. In minutes, shock waves rolled outward. In hours, tsunamis taller than buildings crashed upon coasts. In days, the skies darkened, and the sea changed. The sunlight that fed the plankton was gone. The plankton that fed the fish vanished. The fish that fed the predators starved. The warm currents cooled. The oxygen thinned. The balance tipped. And in that imbalance, the rulers began to fall. Last breaths in the deep imagine. A Mosasaurus gliding beneath what is now a desert plain. Its body still strong, its eyes still sharp, its belly empty. It has hunted here 1,000 times before, but now the prey are gone, and it does not know why. The water smells different. The pressure feels wrong. The sea has gone quiet in ways that terrify even those without words. For days it searches. For miles it glides. It finds only echoes. And eventually, even the giant tires, it drifts downward. A ruler without a realm. A titan without a time. And there in the soft silence of the dying sea, it stops. Its bones will fall gently into the sediment. picked clean by scavengers, pressed by centuries, swallowed by stone. And one day we will find its tooth in the cliffside, and we will wonder how it ended. The shape of collapse. Extinction is not just about the dead. It is about the missing. Whole ecosystems vanish. The ammonites spiraled, ancient beautiful go with them. The marine crocodiles, the giant turtles, the shelled squids, the reef fish, gone. The sea that remains is not the same sea. It looks the same from above, but below, its music has changed, like a symphony, missing its horns, its drums, its ancient voices. And yet, life goes on. Small fish return, corals regrow, new creatures rise, sharks, whales, dolphins. But the shape of the ocean has been permanently altered, a history rewritten by hunger, by ash, by silence. We think of extinction as subtraction, but sometimes it is transformation. The sea is never still. It forgets and remembers all at once. And in forgetting the kings, it made space for new rulers. We inherit their absence. We sail over their graves. We swim above the streets of their lost cities. We take vacations on islands built of their bones. But most of the time, we do not know. We call it chalk. We call it limestone. We quarry it. We build our homes from it. But it is bone. Compressed memory. The white echoes of creatures so large they split the sea in silence. Their stories are not over, because we are still telling them. Their bones rise into museums. Their names whisper across textbooks. Their forms dance through documentaries and childhood dreams. And in that way, they endure, not as predators, not as rulers, but as reminders that the world does not belong to us, that the ocean has always had its kings, that even kings can drown. What the sea kept and what it let go, not everything fossilizes. Most things decay. Most stories are lost. The vast majority of sea dinosaurs, millions upon millions, are gone without trace. We hold only fragments. One skull, a few ribs, a single flipper. And from these we reimagine a kingdom. But maybe that's enough. Maybe we don't need to know everything to feel the weight of what was lost. Maybe the silence is the point. Maybe extinction in the end is not just an ending, but an invitation to remember, to wonder, to listen more carefully the next time the ocean goes quiet. The sea was quiet for a time, after the asteroid, after the ash, after the giants sank into the sediment and the ammonites coiled themselves into disappearance. There was nothing loud left, only shadows, small fish, tiny crabs, silence. And yet even silence can be a womb, because the sea does not stop. It forgets, but it also invents. And in the long centuries after extinction, something stirred again. At first they were small, tentative, clumsy maybe. New creatures returning to old habits, feet turning to flippers, spines, arching eyes, adjusting to the shimmer of salt and light. And then slowly, the giants returned. Not the same ones, not Mosasaurus, not Ichthyosaurus, not Plesiosaurus, but others, and the ocean made room. The sea remembers the shape. There is something uncanny about evolution, as if it remembers what worked, as if it runs its fingers over old blueprints and says, let's try this again. Whales are not reptiles. They are mammals. Warm-blooded, air-breathing, once land-walking mammals. But their bodies are suspiciously familiar. Streamlined, tapered, powerful flukes at the tail, paddle-like forelimbs, vestigial hind legs lost to time. They move through water like ghosts of the Ichthyosaurs. And in their size, in their calm command of space, they echo the giants that came before. Blue whales, the largest animals to ever live on Earth, are children of the same sea. They do not hunt like Mosasaurus. They do not ambush like Pliosaurus. They filter tiny life with baleen their mouths, like cathedrals for plankton. But they are big, deliberately, undeniably. As if the ocean were saying, I still remember how to hold this kind of weight. Dolphins too echo the past, their sleek speed, their sonar, their intelligence. Not the same as Ichthyosaurs, but close enough to make you stare twice. And seals, sea lions, manatees, all air breathers, all land mammals who turn back toward the water. Again and again and again, It seems the ocean calls us home, even now, even after all that has been lost. The return is never perfect. None of these modern creatures are direct descendants of the sea dinosaurs. Their bloodlines do not touch, but their shapes do, their solutions, their decisions. Because water is a sculptor. It doesn't care whether you're born from lizard or wolf. It only cares if you work. And so it molds, it chisels, it rewards the same tricks, flippers, flukes, breath held in darkness, again and again. The Plesiosaurs vanished, but some turtles glide now with their grace. The Mosasaurs are gone. But orcas carry the same confidence, the same ruthless presence in their eyes. The Ichthyosaurs are fossil, but dolphins shimmer with their speed. It is not mimicry, it is convergence. The sea builds what the sea needs, and the sea remembers function. The modern giants are gentle. There is something else that changed. The new giants, they are quieter. Whales do not hunt with teeth, they sing. Orcas are hunters, yes, but they do not devour in the same way the Mosasaurs did. They are pack thinkers, tactical. They leave prey behind when they have enough. Dolphins play, manatees graze. There is power in their bulk, but also a softness, as if the sea decided it had seen enough blood and wrote a new chapter. Or perhaps we only believe them gentle because we are allowed to observe them. We do not watch the sea dinosaurs with cameras. We cannot track their migrations. We do not name them, but the whales we follow. And in doing so, we project. We make them holy. We make them symbols. We sing of their songs. And perhaps we forget that they too are survivors of a hungry ocean. Shadows in our dreams. Still they echo. Children draw sea monsters. Movies imagine mosasaurs leaping to catch helicopters. Books speak of lost creatures hiding in Mariana trenches. There is something in us that still misses them, still fears them, still wants them to be real, not because we wish to meet one, but because we want the sea to keep some secrets. We want the ocean to be older than us, stronger than us, stranger than us. We want to believe that somewhere in the cold, dark layers of the deep, a plesiosaur still glides, not seen, not caught, just there. A flicker, a rumor, a dream, a legacy carried forward. The sea dinosaurs are gone, but their story did not end. It flowed forward into the whales, into the sharks, into the very idea of what it means to live in water. Their bones rest in stone, but their shapes live in living skin. We are not their children, but we are their audience. And what we learned from them was not just how to swim, but how to last. They teach us humility. They remind us that dominance is temporary, that even rulers sink, that even giants vanish, and that the sea will carry on without us. But for now, we float above their memory. We ride their echo. We name our submarines and theme park rides after them. We animate their skeletons. We resurrect them in sound and story, and that in some strange way makes them immortal. They no longer swim, but they are not gone. Somewhere on the coast of southern England, a child picks up a stone. It is pale, round, ordinary at first glance, but inside a spiral, delicate ancient, carved by time. An ammonite. She doesn't know the name, only the shape. And something in her hands feels important. Heavy though it weighs almost nothing. Familiar though it is older than her ancestors. She runs to her parent. Look, she says, I found a fossil. But what she's really saying is, I found a memory. The sea gives back what it buries. Sometimes. In pieces. In whispers. It rolls its past into cliffs. And in the wind and rain, it reveals it again. Bit by bit. Story by story. To those who are quiet enough to listen, the sea dinosaurs are gone. But they are not silent. They remain in the curves of our science, in the displays of our museums, in the hands of our children. They remain in the language of the sea, in the terror of deep water, in the longing we feel when we stare too long at the horizon and wonder what was. We call them monsters, but they were only living. We call them extinct, but they still shape the present. We call them forgotten, but here we are telling their story. The ocean has always been a mirror. It reflects the sky. It reflects the stars. It reflects us. In the Mosasaurus, we see our ambition, our hunger, our boldness. In the Ichthyosaurs, we see speed, escape, evolution's determination to try again. In the Plesiosaurs, we see mystery, beauty that doesn't make sense. A neck too long, a body too graceful. And in their extinction, we see warning, not punishment, not revenge. Just the simple rule of Earth, nothing lasts. But oh, what a reign it was. Millions of years. Across seas that no longer exist. In skies untouched by human thought. In waters where the only music was motion. They swam, they birthed, they fought, they ruled, and then they stopped. No one saw the last one go. No one marked its passing. No one carved a monument. Only the sea remembers, and it remembers in bone. Let it be enough. We were not there, but we can imagine. We cannot hear their voices, but we can speak their names. Ichthyosaurus, Plesiosaurus, Mosasaurus, Pliosaurus, Elasmosaurus. Let them be said again. Let them rise from the stone for a moment. Let them swim again in our minds. Not because they need it, but because we do. Because in remembering them, we remember how old this world is. How fragile, how vast, how beautiful even the fiercest life can be. You've walked through a lost empire. You've heard the tide's slow breath. You've stood in the footprints of rulers who never touched land. You've looked into the hollow eye sockets of hunters who once watched the sun from below. And now, you carry that with you. A quiet knowledge, a gentle awe, a reminder that Earth is not ours. That it has been many things before, and will be many more after. The sea dinosaurs are gone, but in the layers of stone, in the spiral of an ammonite, in the fossil on a beach, in the story told before sleep, they live. And somewhere far beneath the waves, where light no longer reaches, where pressure hums and silence sways, the sea still waits. Not for their return, but for someone else to listen. If you've made it this far, thank you for drifting through deep time with us, for walking the ocean floor, for listening to the bones, for remembering what the world once held before memory had a name. There are more stories waiting, more vanished giants, more forgotten empires beneath the dust and salt. So if you would like to keep exploring, subscribe to the Lost World Files, because this planet is full of secrets, and we're just beginning to unearth them together.